Hi everyone. So welcome to the class of business to business marketing. We were continuing the pricing unit in the last since the last lecture. We discussed what is pricing and why pricing is an important subject in business to business markets. Well, the challenge before any company, be it a B2C or a B2B company, is that it is often very difficult to exactly put a number, right, or fix a price to the product, because we do not know how exactly the customer would respond to that. And the challenge is that if you over price it, or you price it very highly, the customer may not like the product, he would reject the product, and he would buy somebody else, some competitor's product. But in the case if you are not pricing enough, or you are underpricing the product, then there is a chance that for every unit that you sell, you are making some losses, and that can amount to a very substantial loss in when you look at the total amount of sales. So, what is the right price? That is what we were discussing, and why pricing becomes even more challenging in a in the B2B context is simple, because B2B products are very complex products, right? They have multiple applications, and it is very difficult to ascertain how customers would envisage the product, right? So, in the last lecture we were talking about the price setting process, and we said the first important objective is, whenever a company wants to decide upon a price, it has to know what is the objective of the company, whether the company is thinking of just a survival, or it is thinking of penetrating into the market, right, or it wants to skim the market. So, what is the objective of the company? The company can have a short term or a long term objective, right. So, what exactly is the company trying to do, right. So, selecting the price objective becomes the most important part of the price setting process, right. After that, the next thing that is important is to determine the demand. Now, what is the demand of the product in the market? That is an important element. So, what do you understand by demand? Now, demand is generally defined as an ability, of a person. Demand is something like a want, which is, or a desire for a product which is backed by with an ability to pay, right. Now, this is the general definition of demand. Now, here we are saying determining the demand. Now, how do we determine the demand for a B2B product? Now, you can do it with some like some forecasting techniques that we have studied already in the past. For example, you can use a simple moving average, or a or a weighted moving average, or smoothing exponential, or a regression technique. So, you can understand, you can determine the demand, but the question is, what exactly affects the demand? So, let us look at it. So, the basic purpose of estimating the demand is to find out what extent the demand for a product changes with a change in price. Now, here we are worried about what is the relationship between demand and price, right. So, how are they related? So, if demand, let us say price changes, let us say price goes up, right, or price goes down, what happens to the demand? Will the demand remain the same, or will it also get affected by going down or going up, right. So, what will happen? So, it indicates whether buyers are less price sensitive or they are more price sensitive. Suppose they are less price sensitive, that will happen when the product is a very important item to the buyer, and the buyer feels that without this product maybe the work will get affected. So, he would not like to change. And interestingly, what happens is, in the B2B market, because the products are highly complex, large, and capital intensive, so what happens is the marketer has to, or the producer has to change its lot of things. For example, if it buys a new product or uses a new product from a competitor, then the existing product has to be removed, right. So, in removing that product, it spends time, it spends energy. So, there is a lot of switching switching time involved, right. So, that can be counterproductive for the company. And if it is, let us say, if it is a product, let us say, which is not so important, let us say, then the company, then the buyer will be extremely sensitive to the price, right, and the demand can be elastic in nature. Okay. if demand hardly changes with a small change in price, then the demand is inelastic, right, mathematically. However, if there is a substantial change because of the change in price, substantial change in the demand, then we say the demand is elastic, right. This is how numerically we will understand. Now, what factors are impacting the demand? So, as I said, let us say this is an engine, right. Now, when you look at an engine, so the engine becomes a very important part of any machinery, right. Now, many factors will influence the price elasticity of demand. What are the points? For example, the first point, it says the ease with which customers can compare alternatives and switch suppliers. Now, just now as I said, if the switching cost is very high, it is very difficult to switch. That means you have to completely change the assembly line, you have to change the process of manufacturing and all. Then a producer or a buyer will think twice before changing the product or the supplier. Okay. The second thing is the importance of the product in the cost structure. Now, how important is the product in the cost structure? For example, if you look at the engine, now the engine is a very important product, right. And let us say if anything wrong, if you try to compromise or if you try to negotiate on engine quality on terms of price, then there might be a situation that you may buy initially at a very less price, but because of lot of maintenance issues and all, the overall cost of the product may come up, may go up, right. Similarly, the value that the product represents to a customer. Now, how important is the engine to bike owner or a car owner or a pump owner? Now, that will be deciding how much value the person gives to this product, and according to that value, he will decide whether should I go for a product of high quality, high price, or a product of moderate quality and moderate price, or a product of low quality and low price. Now, that entire thinking system will change on how important that product is for the user. Demand of many industrial products or B2B products for that is relatively inelastic. Now, why am I saying it is inelastic? Because if you change the price, right, the demand is more or less remains the same. It is not going to change, fluctuate much. Why? Because as I said, because this product is a very important part of the production process, or this product has a lot of multiple applications, right. So, a user will very remotely or very rarely try to change the product and go for a new one, right. So, that is why the demand for most of the industrial products or B2B products is generally inelastic, right. So, they are less affected by price. I do agree that there are certain class of items where obviously there is sensitivity or price sensitivity is high, but if you look at the most of the machineries or the capital items, they are less price sensitive, right, because of their importance. Okay. And moreover, what I said, as you can see, it is technically a sophisticated and customized product. So, since it is a technically sophisticated product, generally the user or the buyer would not like to tamper much, because he feels I have learnt using this machine maybe after so much of time, after so much of training has been given to my employees and all. Now, if I want to change it, the switchover will take lot of more, waste my time and waste lot of my money and all that has gone for training and other purposes. Okay. So, what is price sensitivity? Now, why are we talking about price sensitivity? So, price sensitivity, if you see, is the degree to which demand changes when the price of a product or service changes. So, how sensitive are the customers to the price? So, right. So, here we are saying is the degree to which demand changes when the price of a product or service changes. Okay. It is generally identified with the elasticity of demand. Okay. Now, given by this formula, right. So, percentage change in quantity upon percentage change in price. So, if price changes, how much of quantity demanded changes, that is what we are trying to find out here. Let us take an example. Imagine you own a B2B company, right. So, you are a producer of certain software or certain, let us say you are a consulting firm or a industrial product manufacturing firm. you are producing something which is used by the industry. So, you are a B2B part of the B2B sales. Okay. Now, imagine that because of certain reason you have decided for a 25% hike in the price of your product. So, now since you have increased the price of your product 25% increase, what will happen? What do you think the customers will do? Will they run away? Will they stay? What will happen? Now, this value can be changed. For example, what happens if I change it by let us say not 25, but let us say 35% or let us say 50%. Now, what happens to the change? So, maybe somebody will say people are sensitive, but not so sensitive that with a slight change in the price of the product they will change the product. But if you increase dramatically, let us say you are changing the price of the product by increasing it by almost 50% or something, then the user might say it is worth that we may go for a new product instead of this older one, because it is becoming very costly. Okay. So, there is a possibility that customers will go or not go for other firms or competing firms, right. Now, what is the need of price sensitivity? Why do we need to understand it? First of all, it helps to understand the impact of increase and decrease in price on the profitability of a company. Now, as I had said earlier, if you remember in one of the lectures, I said keeping all things constant in any B2B market or any market for that, right. Let us say the variable cost is same, the fixed cost is same, the number of units being sold is the same. 1%, a Harvard study had said that 1% change in the price of a good will result in 11% increase in profits. Okay. So, we can understand that price has a deep impact. Now, when you recently when Hindustan Unilever Limited increased the price of its products, so there is no doubt that price and volume are connected. So, if price is increasing, volume will also change, but we know if volume is assumed to be kept constant, it does not change, then with a slight increase in price, the profitability of the company suddenly goes up. Okay. The second thing is to change pricing according to the mood of the customers. Now, what do you mean by the mood of the customers? The mood of the customers here we mean to say is that are customers willing to pay, or how much are they willing to pay, right. So, here this becomes like checking the pulse of the customer. So, what is the customer thinking? How important is my product for the customer? Now, let us assume a situation. Now, I need a bag. For example, I am thinking of buying a bag. Okay. Now, I am staying in a place where there is no rain or there is heavy rain. So, let us say there is no rain and there is heavy rain, right. So, just imagine if suppose there is a bag which costs me let us say 1000 rupees or 1500 rupees, right, which can protect me from rain and the file and everything in the documents inside will stay safe. Will I go for this bag in a place where there is no rain? Obviously not, because I feel it is a waste of my money, because what is the use of such a bag in a place where there is no rain? But let us say imagine I am in a place like Mumbai or Kerala where there is heavy rain. Now, then I would like to use this bag because the document inside this bag is more costlier, more worthwhile, right. So, that is why the pricing has to be done according to the mood of the customer. What does the customer think, right? Something is called something I can give an example of yield pricing, or sometimes what happens, you must have seen that pricing is also done in terms of the situation you are in. For example, let us say Uber and Ola like companies, right. Now, what they do is basically they would price their services looking at the supply and demand. Now, how many what is the demand of the demand at a particular period of time, and how many cars or services they have that is available at that time. Let us say if the demand outpaces the supply, that means if more demand is there from the consumers and there is only few drivers available or few cars available, then the cost will automatically increase the price. Okay. Similarly, you or vice versa. Similarly, you see this concept in airlines also, in ticketing, pricing the tickets and all, right. So, this is something like we call it as a dynamic pricing, right, dynamic pricing. Okay. What is the third thing? The third is to set a price which will achieve a perfect balance. So, we say price should help us in getting that, reaching that equilibrium, state of equilibrium. So, price and quantity should be balanced in such a manner that the company will achieve its break even and start making profits. So, these are three important things that are very vital while we check the price sensitivity from customer point of view. So, how is this price sensitivity which is measured through the elasticity of demand, how is it exactly measured? So, formally it is defined as the ratio of the percentage change in volume to the percentage change in the price, right. So, let us assume there is a company that supplies vending machines. Now, this vending machine sells soft drinks at rupees 200 per bottle. Okay. Now, at this price consumers buy 4,000 bottles per week. Okay. To increase the sales to 5,000 bottles, it has been decided to decrease the price to rupees 100. Let us assume that there is a company that is supplying vending machines. Okay. Now, this vending machine sells soft drinks at rupees 200 per bottle. Okay. So, what is it saying? P1 is equal to, let us say 200. Now, at this price consumers buy 4,000 bottles per week. So, Q1 is equal to 4,000. Okay. To increase sales to 5,000 bottles, that means 5,000 bottles per week. So, which is the new Q2, let us say, is equal to 5,000, right. It has been decided to decrease the price to, so new P2 is equal to 100, right. Now, what is the elasticity? How elastic, what is the price elasticity of demand? So, we say price elasticity is equal to del Q by del P, okay, change in quantity by change in price. So, now looking at the change in quantity as a percentage, if you see, now what is happening? So, quantity is, let us say 5,000, let us say 5,000 minus 4,000, right, divided by the initial one which is 4,000, divided by change in price which is, let us say P2, which is you can say 200 minus 100, although you have to look at it from a, it is only for a sign I am making it, divided by 100, right. Now, sorry, divided by 200. So, what it is happening now? 5,000 minus 4,000, which is 1,000, 1 by 4, 1 by 4 into 100 by 200 or 2 by 1. So, this is equal to 0.5. So, now we say that the price elasticity is 0.5, that means the, we say the product is, if it is the price elasticity is less than 1, then we would say it is not so elastic or it is inelastic in nature, right. Similarly, suppose the price elasticity for of demand for a good is 0.2, there is a 5% increase in the price of the good. Now, by what percentage will the demand for the goods go down? Now, to do this, we will have to do nothing but we are saying, since the price elasticity we know is 0.2. So, we know that elasticity is elasticity is equal to 0.2 and increase in the price. So, del Q, right, by del P. So, P we know, right, which is 5%. So, if we just multiply this, we will find out that del Q is equal to 1%. So, right, so 1%. So, the demand of the goods will go down by just 1%. So, the total demand you can write either minus 1% or just write down go down by 1%, same thing. The third thing that we talked about after demand is the estimating the cost. Now, the cost becomes a very important part of pricing, right. Traditionally, if you see, we had a cost based pricing all the time, right. So, companies cost set the lowest point on the price range. So, what do companies do? Companies tend to find out whatever the different cost that is involved in the producing the product, the labor cost, raw material cost, everything, then they maybe add up a markup and sell the product. So, the company wants to charge a price that covers its cost of producing, distributing and selling the product, including a fair return. Now, generally if you see, this is called the traditional method of pricing, traditional method. Here companies were bothered about the cost of production, but the problem is here what happens is many other things are left out. For example, let us say I am visiting a hospital, right, and let us say patient, there is a patient who has to visit to the hospital for a cardiac operation, heart operation, right. Now, let us say he the doctor, uses a particular stent, let us say, which is, let us say 10,000 rupees, or let us say 1 lakh rupees, I do not know the price, 1 lakh rupees, imagine 1 lakh rupees, and this is not a very good quality, let us say not a good quality, right. So, and there is an option that he can, or the patient can be, put a stent can be applied, which is 2 lakh 50,000, which is a good stent, right. Now, the question is, if you look at the cost, if the company feels that, okay, this company feels that the cost of production in both the cases, in this case let us say it is 60,000, right, and here it is also not much, but it is somewhere around, let us say 80,000 rupees. But somehow the company has learned how to make good stents, and they can, they are selling at 2 lakh 50,000. So, the question is it, if they would not have sold at 2 lakh 50,000, what would have happened? They could have looked at the competition, or let us say the cost of production, they could have sold somewhere maybe with a little markup, they could also have sold it at 1 lakh. But had they sold up at 1 lakh, what would have happened? They would have lost 1 lakh 50,000 per each stent, right. Now, this is a simple loss to the company, because here, because of a higher quality, this good is of a higher quality, people are ready to pay. And now what is happening? Let us assume, suppose you use this stent, it works fine for 3 years, right, without any problem. But it has been found that if you use this stent, it works for almost 6 to 7 years, let us say. And after every third or fourth year, you have to visit a hospital, and visiting the hospital, maybe the charge of visiting the hospital, the headache is almost another 1 to 2 lakhs, right. So, now the company, the customer feels, if I use this, right, and I am visiting the hospital 2 times, for example, let us say I am spending for 2 times visit, I am spending 4 lakh rupees, right, and the cost of the stent is 60,000. So, almost 4.6, around 5 lakhs I am spending. But here, if I am spending 80,000 on this and 2 lakh 50,000 on this, then 2 lakh 50,000 on this, and let us say 1 lakh or 2 lakh for the hospital charge, then what happens is I am almost spending the same money or even lesser than the first case, but there is at least no headache, no fear of life and anything. So, why not go for the better one, and why compromise with this one? So, what happens is, in such a condition, cost based pricing does not work, because it is bringing a loss to the company. If you would have understood how much the customer values this product, because he is not going to the hospital again, he is avoiding all kind of headaches, the fear that he would lose his life, and all the important things. At that point, if we understand this, we can easily understand that the customer is paying more value, right, and we can change the price. So, cost is only a traditional method, which is hardly, which is important, but then it has lot of loopholes also. What are the classification of cost we talk about? Classification of cost we talk is about fixed cost. So, for example, for producing any hospital product or any machinery or anything, you need to have a infrastructure. So, the cost that does not vary with the production or sales, right. So, examples are the rent, interest charge, managerial salaries and all. So, these are my fixed overhead. That means, if I have to build a plant, right. So, all the cost that I bear is a fixed cost, and that does not matter whether you use make 100 products out of it, 100 units, or you produce 1000 units, it does not matter, right. It remains the same, the plant is built. What is variable cost? Variable cost is a cost that varies, right, in proportion. So, if I am using raw material for, let us say I am producing 100 units, suppose I need 100 raw materials. Now, if I make 200 units, the raw material also becomes 200, but the cost of buying 100 raw materials was more than the cost of buying 200 raw materials. Why? Because as the quantity of purchase increases, there is a quantity discount that the buyer gets. Okay. So, these two costs, if you see, the fixed and the variable cost, they together make the total cost. Now, Fixed cost, as we have said, it does not change, and we are not we can't do much about it, but variable cost changes, as the name is variable, with, let us say, with some government taxes, with supply chain disruptions, as recently happened in the during the COVID time, when raw material was not available, the input cost for many companies went high, and because of that the products become costlier, and other side you had inflation, so people were not able to buy. So these were the difficulties that happens. Okay. So for any manufacturer or any producer, these costs are very important in the traditional form, because they need to understand how to fix the price only when they have this cost in hand. Okay. The next important point when pricing is discussed is analyzing your competitors' cost. Now, how many competitors you have and how they are performing in the market, what is their level of presence in the market, is a very important topic. So, competition sets up the upper limit on price. It could be the upper limit in the sense, why? Because you see, if your competitor is selling at a particular price, then you do not have a scope to go much ahead of him until unless you have a very strong brand, right. So, many business marketers regard competitive level pricing as the most important pricing strategy. So, if you do not have to understand anything, you can just look at what is the competitors doing, what are your competitors doing, and you can just follow that pricing strategy. But the risk is that, again, as I said, you may be losing on value, right, or you have not tracked your cost well, then that means you can be in a very tricky situation. Okay. A business firm should get the information on not only competitors' price and cost, but also about the product quality. That is important. So, do not look at only the price of what your competitor is showing. So, let us say Q1 P1. Now, Q1 is the quality of the product of the competitor, let us say, and this is Q2 is my price, right. Q2 is my quality. So, on basis of my quality, if my quality is much superior, why I can even charge a higher price, which is P2, so, and P2 is greater than P1, let us say. Or if I feel that my product quality is not as good as my competitors quality, in such a condition I may use pricing as a promotional strategy, may reduce the price, so that the customer tries to use my product. Okay. Once the business firm gets the information about competitors, it can use price to position, right, itself. So, pricing can also be used as a positioning strategy. Now, what does it mean? Now, many companies used cost effective strategies, right, or cost leadership strategies. It is called cost leadership strategy. So, what do? They try to become the cost leader in the market. So, they try to sell at the lowest price point that is possible, where the competitors can't even think of or they can't reach. So, by doing this, what cost leadership strategy, by using this strategy, uh, companies have penetrated deep into the market and they have played on volumes, they have earned a lot of volume sales and they have made profit. But the risk is that by always going for cost leadership, right, there is a chance that your competitors might fight back and can create a difficult position for you. Okay, what does it mean? It means that if a firm's product quality is superior to all its competitors, it can price its product higher than the competitors. However, if it is reverse, right, then they can either keep equal or lesser than or close to the competitors' prices. So, this strategy works, but then again there are several factors to be seen. What is your brand image of your company, your product, and what kind of supply chain systems you have, what kind of distribution, how are you promoting in the market, what kind of goodwill you have created in the market. All these things will in one or the other way affect whether I can charge that particular price or not, right. Now, the last point to be discussed is setting the price level. Now, when I am saying setting the price level, so what I am saying here, given the customer's demand schedule, the cost function and competitor's price, the company is now ready to select a price. So, on basis of this, there are three types of price that we will be talking about. Okay, cost based pricing, value based pricing, and competition based pricing. So whatever we have just discussed, we will be trying to look at more descriptively or more in detail and more in detail about each of these strategies. So, what happens in a cost based strategy, what happens in a value based strategy, and how do we go for a competition based strategy, right, or competition based pricing. So, let us continue this in the next class, and let us wind up the class for today, and till then take care. We will meet in the next class then. Thank you very much.